Hi guys, Audrey and Rebecca from Inbox Academy here. I know we're usually bringing you email tips. Our last recording, we did something a little different. We dove into my background, my backstory, how I got to where I am now. And this week, we're going to dive into Rebecca's story, which I am excited to share with you all because she's just an incredible person. Her story is amazing. And yeah, so we want to start from the beginning as we did with my story. And yeah, I'd love to know, where did you grow up and how was it?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ohio, right on Lake Erie. So I grew up fishing. We don't have where Audrey and I live now in Maryland. We're lucky if we get a few days of snow. And I grew up with snow pretty much from early November through March, like never went away. It just kept building up. I remember like driving to school in high school after they would plow the roads so many times. I had my little, my little car, my little Escort, and like the snow was taller than my car on both sides, like always. Like you're like in a little tunnel, So it's different living here, and I love the snow because of growing up on the lake. But something people don't know a lot about me is I grew up in a family of 12. So I have nine
So
siblings.
crazy.
Yeah. I
I
know
only have
how
one, so it's like,
I know how to share a bathroom. Okay. Yeah, there was 10 of us all together. So I have nine siblings and then obviously my mom and my dad, and we grew up in the country. And it was a great childhood. My mom did foster care, so we constantly had kids in and out of our home. I think by the time I was
amazing.
maybe like 8, we had over 200 kids coming in and out. So whether it was for respite, like a weekend of a break from like another foster family that needed care, to like last minute crisis, to actual kids that needed permanent homes, we constantly had kids rotating in and out. It was a big house, but there was a lot of bunk beds in each room. We shared rooms, that's for sure. But then when I was around like between 8 and 10, my mom adopted a family of 4. And then shortly after, she adopted 2 other girls. So I really don't remember a life without them. Like they are my
Yeah.
family, adopted or not. Like my whole childhood is memories with my brothers and my sisters. So there's 2 boys and the rest were girls. So my
Oh my
poor
gosh.
brothers, my poor brothers, they hung in there.
Close are you now with all of them? Like, have you
Yeah,
guys scattered across, the US, or are you
most
still
of
in
them are in Ohio. I have one sister in California. I mean, we talk and we chat, but just distance. We're not super close. When I go home, I always see my brothers. And, whenever my sisters can see me, they're there, but it doesn't always work. So, but we're still close. We love each other. And it's kind of like one of those distance doesn't change it. You know what I mean? But yeah, so, and then I shared with you recently, which was kind of a hard chapter for me, was my sister passed away. One of my sisters passed away 2 years ago. So Veronica, she's a big part of who I am today, but she had a lot of handicap issues. Her mom was on drugs when she was born. It was just a really rough situation, and she was pretty much abandoned. And my mom took her in when she was super, super little. And it was just such an eye-opening experience of
Mhm.
like, wow, like I should be so grateful. Like I was going through that age of like, you just think about yourself. And it was just like, wow, like we have a good family and we have room for her. And so my mom started doing foster care for her. And when, they were like, okay, we can take her and find her a home, my mom's like, well, she has a home here. So like, we don't want to keep moving her. We love her. So we kept her, and then eventually we were like, this girl's got to stay. So my mom adopted her. We're like, nobody's going to take her away from us. We just love her so much. But because of that, she had a lot of like gastrointestinal issues. She was on a tube. And then when she got older, she's a little bit younger than me. So, like in her 30s, she just kept getting sick a lot. And then she ended up
Mhm.
passing away. So that was really, really hard. But I think it just helped our family to kind of reevaluate what's really important and how much she meant to us. And yeah, so
Mhm.
that I mentioned that because that whole upbringing is a big part of who I am right now. Not just Veronica, just being raised with a big family and sharing and having a ton of, like our weekends were not like go hang out with our friends, especially like
Mhm.
under high school, it was always like family picnics and getting together with our cousins and, because my mom and my dad both had big families as well. So
Yeah.
just one big
And
family.
I mean, it shows through so much in like both how you coach, but also how you are as a business partner, like little
Mhm.
peek behind the scenes. But like whenever I have anything family, of course, like Rebecca's like, oh my God, I'll take care of everything. You go focus on your family time. Like it's just, and
Yeah.
it's really lovely to share that like
No,
value
thank you.
and to have it really actually come through in how you work.
Yeah, thank you. That's sweet. Yeah, there's nothing like family. And at the end of the day, it's all that, being there for people is all that really matters. And I think we both have that heart, which makes, I think, us like really great partners as
Yeah.
in Box Academy too, because we're both like coaching and we both just like care so much about each person's story and what they're going through. So yeah, we make a good team.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, that was my childhood. I got married right out of high school. Technically, I stayed home for a year. I tried college for nursing, hated it, very quickly realized I don't do blood. Um, yeah, don't do it. And I'm
Didn't
like,
know that going in.
well, I just like, I don't know. I was like in that, I feel like we're in that era like of where people are like, oh, you like become a nurse. There's so many nurses like our
Yeah.
age, I feel like. So I just picked nursing. I was like, I like to help people and I care
Yeah.
about people. So like I'll nurse. And then I started school for it and I was like, I will pass out and hurt somebody if I am a nurse. So we cannot do this. But I also have like, some people don't know this, but I have like, when I was younger, I had anxiety of something being wrong with me. My grandfather died when I was young, and I became like worried that something wrong was wrong with me and I was just gonna suddenly die. So I
No.
think like being a nurse and going through school for it made me like start to think about all these conditions and it made me feel a lot of anxiety.
Well, yeah,
And
I
I
heard that's really common is that like I forget what the term is, but yeah, when nurses start reading about or like doctors and stuff as they're going through school actually start to just imagine that they have everything because you have to read all the symptoms and so you start to like think like, well, I
imagine.
have those symptoms.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, why I can't watch like Grey's Anatomy or anything like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I that like one out of a million people that have this rare? Like, I have headaches, I have,
Yeah.
nearsightedness. Like, I just get all crazy about it. Not anymore, though. I have learned to like balance that and be in control. But it was rough when I was younger. So nursing was not for me. And then I had this handsome Navy guy swoop into my life and decided, I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for, so I was just working. And he was like, let's get married. When you decide you want to go to school, you can go for school, like get your schooling for free under the military as my wife. And I grew up in a little country town and I was like, let's do this. This is an adventure. I'm ready to get out of my house. Like,
Yeah.
so I got married and it was an adventure in good ways and bad. We moved a lot of different places, which was really cool. That's where I discovered my love for traveling, honestly.
Mhm.
We lived in Germany for a while. We lived in Hawaii for a few years. We lived in all different areas in the US, down in Georgia. We were able to be in California for like we just bounced around and it was really cool to raise the kids like that. Which side note, I had Nevaeh. I got pregnant 3 months after we got married. So literally, our anniversary was July 30th, and my daughter was born July 14th. So, like, 1 year was like we had a child, Like, it wasn't easy. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I just traveled a bunch, and that was great. But, like, during the whole time, my marriage was like horrible. I mean, just
Mm.
horrible. A lot of people know this word, and I'm going to throw this out there because I don't care people knowing this, but narcissist, right? I actually didn't really understand what that really was.
Mm.
I kind of just categorized that with being cynical. But when we finally moved here to Maryland and bought a house for the first time,
Mhm.
within a couple months, he basically said, I want out. Like, I don't want this life at all. I thought I did. The kids, the wife, the house, like, I'm out. And he just left, not willing to go to counseling, not willing to do anything. And it was devastating. But my whole marriage was just this like whirlwind. And I started counseling immediately for me and my kids, which I'm a huge advocate for. Like, you go through something that traumatic. My goal was like, I don't want my kids to have problems in 5 years from now, right? I don't want my kids to
Yeah.
have problems in their marriages. Like, we are going right now. Like, I cannot pretend to know how to get through this. So we're getting help.
Actually, because I think, like, just to frame this for people, because you said it was like a bit of a whirlwind, but I mean, it was what, 10, 12 years?
15.
15? Okay. I was going to say, I thought that it was like actually a big length of time because I know that your kids were like in their early teenage years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
15 years I was married to him and did not understand what in the world was happening to me. Like, and so when I started counseling, my counselor, we had one session with him where I got him to go, and, the counselor just shared with me, like, do you know what narcissism is?
Wow.
And
So
we
the
talked
counselor
about
saw it
it.
like immediately.
Yep. And we talked about it, and it was like just this light. And I was like, holy crap, this is what's been happening to me for the last 15 years. Like, and
Yeah.
I will spare you the details. But if you have anyone in your life like that, you know what it's like. You're not crazy. I just want to tell you that. But yeah, and it was this freedom. It was like I didn't even want to sit in that and blame him. I just wanted to be like, I understand it. I'm ready to move on. Like, this is like
Mm.
there is more for me in my life than this that's been happening to me. So I'm ready to like heal from this, and I'm ready to move on. And that was my journey with copywriting.
Yeah. This is how we arrive.
Yes, this is how we got here. Because I was homeschooling both kids their whole lives. So, because we traveled so much, their dad actually asked me to homeschool, consider homeschooling them. And I was like, I don't know. Like, they're both about to be in school. Like, I think they were like 3 and 6 or 2 and 5 at the time. And I was like, I don't know. And I thought about it, prayed about it, and then I was like, okay, we'll try it. And we
Wow.
tried it for a year, and it was incredible. Like, I
I
loved
did not know that because I know how much you love and are passionate about
it. Yeah.
homeschooling and how much that was a big part of your journey into copywriting, which we'll get to in a second.
Hmm.
But I did not know that you initially like didn't have, I just assumed that that was a dream you always had or that that
No.
was like came naturally to you.
No, I actually had just started back school and was doing my prerequisites. And then he brought that to me, and I was like, dang it, I just started back up college. Like, the kids are finally
Wow.
like out of our bed, and like I can actually do something. And then I was like, this is still doing something. And like, what's a year to try? Like, at their
Mhm.
age, they were so little. So it was
Mhm.
like, but I loved it. And then I actually was going back to school for teaching. So I was like, maybe I'm just called to teach them. I don't know. Like, that is
Yeah.
a really beautiful calling for your own children. So, yeah, so I had been homeschooling them at this point. My daughter was almost 13, or she was 13, and her brother was 10 when their dad split.
Wow.
And they did not, I mean, you would think like, oh, this is what people were telling me. You're a single mom now. It's time to put him in school, get a job,
Mhm.
suck it up, do what you got to do. And I'm like, no, I did not build this life with them to just do what everyone else tells me I have to do. And for this man to just bail on us and tell me, like he
Mhm.
was telling me, like, just gonna have to be a strong woman and show him what a strong woman looks like. And you're gonna have to go get a job and put him in school. And I'm like, no one is telling me what to do with my children. I am doing this. I am making the decisions. So that's when I started like, oh, snowballing into like, I want to know it all about what can I do, like all the ads, all the filling out forms, like, I want to know what can I do and keep them home. Now, of course, this was still a conversation with them. I asked them, do you want to stay home? Do you want to continue to be homeschooled? And obviously, they were both pretty devastated with the season of our life, and they didn't want to go to public school. Like, not to mention, it was like almost summer, so I couldn't, anyways. Like, I had to
Mhm.
figure out something for the summer. And they were just like, no, mom, like, we love the life that we have. Like, that would be so stressful. And I talked to the counselor, and he was like, changing their environment is the worst thing you could do during a
Mhm.
tragedy like this. Keeping everything the same, what you can keep the same helps your children to like heal with the one thing that's really changed. And
Yeah.
so I found copywriting, and this is where it was like exhausted, exhausted single mother, right? Like I needed money immediately
Yeah.
because he cut me off, which he legally was not allowed to do, right? You're probably like, somebody's watching this and they're like, legally he can't do that. He has to like give you, well, at the time, COVID hit, and he had just like a little bit before COVID hit, and he just decided, I needed to figure it out. Here's a small little bit, and you figure that out. If it's not enough for the mortgage or all your bills, then you have to figure that out. And I'm like, this does not feel right. Like, I've been a stay-at-home mom.
Hmm.
So, anyways, we had to get a court order to give me support. Well, that kept getting pushed and canceled and rescheduled 6 months later, and then rescheduled another 6 months later. And I'm like, how, like, what are you
Yeah.
supposed to do? Like, you have to put food on the table, right? So I started not very, not very like a proud moment for me, but it was like I found this friend of mine, and she calls herself the queen of side hustles. And I was like, give me something where I can
Mhm.
make my bills and feed my kids. And she was like, you want to clean houses? And I was like, sure, let's do it. I don't care.
Mhm.
So she got me a few gigs, and within like a week, I was cleaning like 2 to 3 houses a week. And I think I was getting like $100 per cleaning. So I was making like
Mhm.
300 bucks a month or a week if I was lucky. And that I literally remember like leaving a house cleaning and going straight to the grocery store and getting stuff for dinner and then going home because like we had nothing. Like that's how tight it was. It was like every
Mhm.
time I cleaned, I had to go home, get groceries, plan stuff out, and then go get another house cleaning. And it was just so stressful. But I found a course to learn copywriting, the same course that Audrey did. And I decided to just start investing my time into it and learning it on the side while I was making the money I needed to get through right now. And that was just, I mean, I look back at that time and I'm like, I don't even know how I functioned. Like, I
You're
don't
in
know.
like beast mom mode.
Man. And it's like so many emotions because like you want to
Yeah.
emotionally be there for your children, but you're like physically and emotionally exhausted. And then I'm like grieving and mourning the loss of my life I thought I had. But it was tough. That time period for me where I was cleaning houses and studying copywriting with this like, again, this was like my dream. It was like, can I find something where I can work from home and still homeschool my kids, still make them breakfast in the morning and be home in the evenings and not miss out on anything, right? Like in copywriting, you get to choose your projects and you do them on your own time, typically with a due date, right? And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to be present with my kids, especially as they were healing from the trauma, right? And it felt like it's funny because this was, quite a few years. This was like 6 years ago now. And it felt like this distant dream or like this thing that doesn't work for everyone. It works for that one lucky person out of like, a million or something that like actually has a career doing something online, writing, and like has all the balance.
I felt that too. It's like kind of that like
Yes.
influencer idea where you're like that's not real
Yeah.
life. People,
Yeah.
like they say that anybody can do it, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
But I was like, dang it, that's gonna be me. I was just like, there's no choice. I have no option right now. Like I either go all in on this and make it work, or I have to do what everybody says and go get a job and put my kids in school and find before and after school care and all of that. And so I pretty much just said to myself, like, no, this has to work. Like, period.
Mhm.
There's no alternative. And my copywriting career, just like when I was able to kind of go, you and I have similar stories. You saved up a little bit, and so did I. I saved up while I was studying copywriting and practicing and stuff.
Yeah.
I was doing the house cleaning, and then I was starting to get more and more house cleaning jobs, and I started just saving. And then in the midst of that, court finally made an order for during the
Mhm.
separation where I got significantly more support than what I was getting. So now I had a little bit of stability in savings. So it was really scary to quit because it still wasn't enough to cover everything. So I quit all my cleaning jobs. But before that, I did what you did. Again, I saved about 3 to 4 months worth of exactly what we needed. Nothing extra. Like I calculated the bills, groceries, not even like a milkshake from Chick-fil-A, right? Nothing extra.
Mhm.
And then I told all my cleaning people like that this was like my last month and I was quitting and I was like, what am I doing? Like
So
I
scary.
didn't have one client. I had never I didn't have a test project at that time or nothing. But I knew that I could not make it work with just my leftover time of like after cleaning homes and taking care of
Yeah.
my kids. Like laying in bed for a half hour every night to study and practice was not gonna make this my income, my sole income. So I just quit everything and I went into like cold outreach and like hit it hard. And it's just incredible to me that literally in that time frame, right in that last month of savings I had left, I hit my goal income, which my goal income was $4,000 to make my mortgage, my to keep our home, to make the mortgage, to pay all of our bills, to put some money away for divorce lawyers and all of that was coming my way.
Mhm.
Like I needed about $4,000 a month to make it. And yeah, and I hit it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm making it. I'm making it.
Which you amaze. I mean, I'm so impressed by you too to like hit the 4,000 because my expenses were much
Yeah,
lower. I didn't have a
yeah,
family and a mortgage. Like I had a really, really cheap rent
yeah.
actually because we were living in a particularly low cost of living area.
Mhm.
So I was paying like
Oh,
$450 in rent. I also had
yeah.
roommates, like, but it was like unheard of to be paying that much.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed that like you were able to
Yeah. And
pull that
I
together so
mean, the
quickly.
kids were so sweet. They were like, if we have to move, we have to move. Like, the kids were just incredible during all of that. Like, they were my cheerleaders. They were encouraging me. My older daughter, the 13-year-old, was like, I'll take this on. I'll get Izzy, like, or my son is Izzy. Like, I'll get him lunch. I'll help out whenever you need me to do things so you can study or take your meetings. And like, she was just so incredible with that stuff. And they both were
That's
like,
amazing.
we were just a team. But like, yeah, you're like the expenses are so much more when it's like three people, like teenagers too. Teenagers eat so
Yes.
much. Like they eat so much.
Um,
So,
so I have a quick question for you.
yeah.
Like, what advice would you give to somebody else who is in those shoes of like, I need to put together like $4,000 on retainer
Yeah. Yeah.
within 3 months, you know?
Yeah.
What were the things that
I
got you
think
through
a
that for
lot of
you?
times, well, first of all, don't feel like you're failing if you have to work while you're building the business. Like I had to work too. And sometimes you can't just quit everything at once and go all in. Sometimes you have to have a side job that you're doing as you're trying to get your first client. And then once you get that client, then maybe you cut back hours or you figure out if it's enough to stop. But like that doesn't mean failure or success. I think a lot of people think they have to go all in, or they sit around with no income, like just trying so hard to get their first retainer and feeling so disheartened about it. But like, you have to do what you have to do in the moment. And if that means a side job while you're trying to make this work, do it. Like, you do what you have to do to make ends meet. But then I would say too, and Audrey, we just talked about this recently, is instead of like looking for this, $3,000, $4,000 retainer, which is, a consistent amount every month from the same person to deliver the same work. Don't pass on those $1,000 opportunities or test projects and lower priced projects. I wasn't above any of that. Like, just because I needed to make that amount of money doesn't mean I was like, hey, I ain't got time for like your $800 retainer or this like $500 project. I was like, sure, I'll do it. I'm going to show you my worth. And I was telling you yesterday too, like a $4,000 retainer is no different than four $1,000 retainers, right? So I ended up getting a retainer for around $1,600, and it was my first one. And it was not what I needed to make ends meet, but it was a step. in the direction, right? And I welcomed every step that I took. So, and then the next month I got another one, and then the next month I got another one. So then I was hitting my income and more. And then, like, down the road, as I got experience with those, I was able to then offer the back end. I was doing mostly copy only for each of these retainers for email. And I was,
So just the writing.
yes, just the writing. And then after I got experience with each of these and I was making my income I needed to for about a year, I was able to come to each of them and say, hey, I can take care of everything from the back end as well. I can do your list cleaning and design these emails and send them out and segment and, like all these different practices to make them really go further. This would be the price. And most of them were almost double, and they all said yes at once. And that took me from being like just scraping by to like living in abundance. Like, what? How did they all three say yes? So,
I love that so much because also it's like so there's risks obviously involved with freelancing and being your own business owner, but how many 9 to 5 employees
yeah,
can say, yeah, I went and asked for a raise and they gave me
right.
double? Like that's not non-existent.
Yeah. I felt
You literally doubled your
literally
income
doubled.
overnight. Like,
And I felt so like one of the voices when everything happened was like, you need to go back to school. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like a college education is very valuable, especially if you need it for what you want to do with your life. Like, go get it. Like, that's how I've raised my kids. But people are like, you need to get a college education. And I'm like, I just want to teach my kids. Like, I like to write, but like, I don't have anything I want to go back for. And I actually considered counseling in the very beginning. And I was like, holy crap, by the time I do all of the years that I would need to do to be a counselor and then the training after you get your degree, making like 30 grand, 20 grand, maybe a year around here as like a starter counselor, my kids will be like moved out by then. Like, I don't need a career in 6 years from now. I need a career right now. And so the fact that I was able to like make six figures, I was like right under six figures my first year and I hit six figures my second year copywriting, and I was like I I just felt so blessed. Like I didn't need a college education to make this work for me. Like I just needed
yeah.
determination. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, and to learn like a valued skill, but you kind of become like a specialist so
Yeah.
quickly in one skill that's really valuable. Like
Mhm.
I don't think people realize how quickly you can learn those skills if you just are really focused about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
and I would
you
say
don't need a degree in all of
no,
marketing.
no, definitely not. And if you're willing
Yeah.
to learn as you go, right? Like that's what we offer with
Mhm.
our course as well in Inbox Academy. Like our heart behind building that course was like to just cut out all the like stuff that we did, all the rabbit holes, all the things we got lost in that didn't matter, and give straight up like this is exactly what you need to know to be good in this. Like this is all you need to know. Just like if you're willing to learn it and practice it, put yourself out there, you can do it. But yeah, so that would be my advice to someone starting or someone like going through a rough time and trying to figure out this is like take the projects you can learn from. Like don't be above them. Obviously charge your value and your worth. You're not giving
Mhm.
away free work. You're not charging $100 for like a bunch of emails. Like, you're gonna charge your value and what you're worth and what your work is worth. Sometimes it's getting your foot in the your foot
Mhm.
doorstep, right? Before you get these huge retainers. I think sometimes we go into like hearing people have like, oh, $10,000 a month and this and that. And then you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. Like, where's my $10,000 a month retainer? Where's my 4K retainer? But mine wasn't one 4K retainer. It was several little small ones.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is one step at a time. And even if it's a little step, like celebrate that. It's another step forward, right? Something I did that I share with a lot of people is a grateful journal. And I am like very faith centered. So I actually had a journal that I wrote a prayer in, and then I would write out all the things like, and not generic, you and I have talked about sometimes being too generic and gratitude stuff. can like rob you from what you really want to see there. Like I got specific. Like I'm so grateful that I was able to go do this with my kids yesterday because I'm not in a 9 to 5 or I'm not, you know what I mean? And I would write that out every day with my prayer. And then I look back on it like a year later and I'm like, I would forget. I forgot like a lot of the small
Yeah.
things that I celebrated on the way. When I finally got to where I wanted to be, I almost it's kind of sad to say a little bit, but I almost forgot some of those little details that got me there. And so to like go back, read the journal, reflect on it, like just wow, like just so overwhelmed with gratitude and it reminds me of how important each of those steps are. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So here I am specializing in email. Audrey, you do primarily like email marketing. I still have a few clients I do some blogs for and some social media captions that I like to do. It's fun for me. But the base of my retainers and all of my work is email marketing. So yeah. And then Audrey and I, like if you watched Audrey's video, you know a little bit about how we met, but we met up for coffee because we figured out we lived close to each other and we like were supposed to meet up for like an hour and then it was like 4 or 5 hours later and we're like, crap. We've been sitting here for a very long time. But during that call, I shared with you, Audrey, about my like heart behind wanting to start a course and like that was kind of like a dream of mine to like how people
Yeah.
see how easy it could be to get into email marketing and like how much those retainers are in comparison to like traditional copywriting retainers or copy only retainers. And Audrey, you shared that you also had the same like, desire to create something like that. And I just remember texting her, like I like pulled into my driveway and I was like, crazy thought. You want to do this thing together or something like that? And she's like, yes. So that is where I am, which I'm super.
I don't know if I would have had the guts to do it without you. So I appreciate that we did it together.
I mean, I
It's funny because I had people reaching out to me, like asking me questions about how I got to where I am.
yeah,
How did you learn all of this? Where do you find like the tutorials and the things that you need? And I kind of, didn't have a great answer for it because it was like, well, I kind of found it all
yeah,
over. Like I had to go search the entire
yeah,
internet for all of these things. And that was, yeah, because as we said, we learned the copywriting skills in one course, but learning the back end of the email and like
yeah.
email specifically, the strategy, the tech stuff, we both kind of just scrapped it together.
I
And
know.
that was a lot of our coffee chat was laughing about how kind of difficult that was and yet how rewarding it was because we were then able to offer these like bigger retainers that also in this day and age like not to gloss over the fact that it's kind of like AI
Yes.
proof because AI can do a lot of the writing now, but it still doesn't do the back end stuff. Not well, at least.
Yeah, I mean, AI can't like go and schedule and design your emails and think about, oh, like your strategy of what are you sending out earlier in the week? What do you have coming up sale wise? How do you want to weave in storytelling to lead into these? Like, there's just a whole beautiful side of it that is like technical and strategy that AI is never going to replace. And I think, yeah, people are using it for copy a lot right now. Let's just be honest. They're like, write me this email, write me this blog. But people are starting to recognize the little words and the cues in there that AI uses. And I think it's starting to feel less and less authentic. So, but that aside, like the back end, what we offer as email strategists and specialists is like, you're not going to get that anywhere else but from an actual human being. And I love that like each of my clients value that. Like I feel so respected by each of my clients. I constantly like being told like, oh, this is amazing results, or I'm so thankful you're part of the team. And like, that's how you know you are where you're supposed to be. It's just very rewarding. So now I have an 18-year-old, almost 19, actually, 19-year-old and 16-year-old, which is just crazy to me. My divorce went through, which was incredibly empowering and refreshing for me and my life and my future. And then I met the bearded dude that I'm married to now. I call him the beard. He's got a fantastic beard. If like, you'll have to see in the future, or if you get on our email list, there's some random pictures thrown of him in there. But I met him, and excuse me, and he was such a good friend. I actually met him towards the end of my divorce, and I told him, I was like, I'm not dating anybody till I'm divorced and I'm healed and I'm ready to date. Like, that could be, I don't even know when, like, just so you know if you're interested. And he's like, I'll wait. He's like, I'll be your friend if that's all you need right now. And I was like, okay, like, this guy has no idea how long he's going to be waiting. But he ended up sticking around, and we were friends for, gosh, almost 2 years before he waited a good year or so after I finally was divorced before he asked me out on our first date. And the kids were super excited because they loved him at this point. He had been hanging around a lot. And so now we're married. We got married 3 years ago, and we just welcomed our baby boy, Boone.
Yeah, so you're starting over with
Yes.
the being a mom,
Yes.
and I love that too, though, because we have a lot of moms in Inside Inbox Academy and stuff,
Yeah.
and you can really relate
Yeah.
to
You
everything
guys
that they're doing,
are,
building a business with a
yeah,
baby.
you're so lucky that I have a little bit of makeup on today and I am dressed. Like, it is a very rare occasion. He's 3 months on Saturday in just 2 days. So, or 3 days. But yeah, so and this has been another season where I can see how grateful I am for what I have built, not only individually in my business, but with you in Inbox Academy. It's beautiful to be able to choose the hours, say yes or no to projects that come my way, have my stable retainers still that I've worked ahead in so that I'm not overwhelmed in this season, and just good relationships with the clients where I can be honest, like, I've got a crazy fussy baby. Can we push this meeting a little bit? Or they're like, sure, no problem, and want to see the baby on the meetings and say hi to him and send me packages. Like, all of that stuff it's just very overwhelming in a beautiful way. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
in a good
such
way.
a good way. So that's kind of where we're at now. And now, Audrey, you and I are trying to pour every extra minute in our hearts into Inbox Academy, because I think that's the thing that I've really learned through my experience in life is, like, even as a child, I really wanted to help people. And, trying to figure out my career, I wanted to help people, ended up being more like teaching my kids and being there for them. But in the midst of all of the hard moments after my ex-husband left, it was so many opportunities came my way to, like, coach people and to encourage them through just really hard times. And I think that's, like, the heart behind Inbox Academy is, like, we just really want to be there for people as they're learning this and to feel confident, but have that support. That's why, like, remember when we first started building the course, we were like, this has to have a community, because, like, what is a
Yeah.
course without a community? Like, that doesn't reflect us. Like, we are both individually coaches as well. So it's like, we want to pour into the people that join the family. We want to hear their stories, and so, yeah, to be in that season right now with Inbox Academy where we're actually, like, becoming really good friends with a lot of our students and being able to just, like, love on them and encourage them in every step they're taking is so rewarding.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it truly
Yeah.
is. All right, so that was Rebecca's story. And if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below. We would love to, continue the conversation. And speaking of continuing the conversation, as we are email marketers, we of course are in our inboxes all the time. So get on our email list and we will drop you email tips, lots of stories, lots of encouragement as well. So definitely pop in there. We would love to continue chatting with you.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.